So we reached the end of the Mexican-American War, right? The Americans have gone into Mexico City and taken over, and so this is the conclusion and how it ends. The Santa Anna withdrew from the city as American troops advanced. So he did not stick around to fight us. He left. The Mexican citizens that were left behind tried to resist, but it was futile. The man that you see seated there on the right, his name is Nicholas Trist, is the American who negotiated the treaty to end the war. In that treaty, Mexico ends up selling the northern territories to the United States for $15 million. Remember, we had offered to buy those territories twice. The first time around, we offered $30 million and they turned it down. Now they've lost the war, and we end up buying the territory for half the price that we were willing to pay at the beginning. So it's kind of like a loss. And the outcome of this war is land, really. The name of the treaty that ends the war is called the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo. It is signed in February of 1848. So the war lasted about 2 years. It will establish the border at the Rio Grande, which is what the United States had always wanted. And the United States promised that any Mexicans living in the territories that we were taking over would be protected. So we do get those northern territories that we wanted for $15 million. We get the border that we want. And then later in 1853, we're going to purchase the land that the blue arrow is pointing to between the Gila River and where that the border is. That area is going to become American territory in 1853. We end up buying that little strip of land for $10 million because we want the railroad to go down into that area. We were doing it to avoid natural barriers like mountains and things. We wanted to be able to get the Transcontinental Railroad to go through there, and it just wasn't going to work. So we ended up buying that little strip of land to make it work. So that is how we end up with the border between Mexico and the United States as it stands today. And you can see that light yellow territory called the Mexican Cession. That's called the Mexican Cession because they ceded it to us. If you cede land to somebody, you're giving it to them. So that is now American territory. And now the borders are pretty much what we know them to be today. You guys have learned how we got Oregon, you learned how we got Texas, and now this is how we got the rest of it. And our borders go now from sea to shining sea. That's the consequence of the Mexican War.